You're listening to The Wealth Advocates with finance experts John Mickelson and Patrick Jenkins. The Wealth Advocates simplify the financial world and show you how today's events could affect your financial health so you feel confident about your financial future.
Good morning, Wealth Advocates Nation. Great to be here again. We're coming to you the night after Senator Manchin signs on to the new tax bill, resurrecting Build Back Better, which causes a huge tax increase to all the middle class. We're here with Scott Grover today. He is our Social Security expert. Scott, this is a pivotal question because with more taxes, with more inflation, with more dollars at the pump, a lot of our seniors are feeling stretched. So we need to talk a little bit about Social Security because most of the problems that are plaguing the economy are government problems. They're really political problems, frankly. So let's dive into Social Security. What's happening in Social Security right now? Because there are changes coming, correct?
Yeah, and to your point, that's a great segue to what I wanted to talk about. The average Social Security check is about $1,600. So every time they pass a bill like that and they increase taxes, the Social Security collectors, they feel it. They feel it, every little penny of it.
Yeah, these are the epitome of the fixed income people. They rely on that check as at least a foundational income because the big fear is they'll deplete their other sources of income. You don't know how long you're going to live, so Social Security becomes at least mentally that pension that kind of keeps us going at a base level, right?
Right. And I'm actually here to give you some good news on that.
All right, that hasn't happened in a long time.
A little bit of alleviation when it comes to that fixed income. Now, it is fixed income, but every year there is what's called a COLA. You've probably heard of COLA. That's not a beverage.
It's Coke, right?
No, it's
Diet Coke.
It's an acronym that stands for Cost of Living Adjustment. And as you've mentioned, the cost of living has gone up and it's going to continue going up. So with your Social Security check, what that means is with the cost of living every year going up, 2022 is definitely a big year where that happens, you will be given a percentage increase based off of the current year.
That's a great point. You know, I sit in addition to Wealth Advocates, I sit on a couple different boards, all of them somewhat charitable, and the employees there have a kind of a different mentality than we do in the private sector. Every single year, they get a cost of living adjustment that accounts for equalizing last year's dollars with this year's dollars. And I always explain it to new members of, we want to make sure they can buy milk each year at the exact same price. So we give them a little bit of a bump. So tell us what's happening with Social Security and cost of living adjustment.
Right, and you're right. It is a percentage increase. It's not a dollar amount increase. So it's all in relation to your Social Security check. So if your Social Security check is $2,000 a month, and the increase is 10%, which is not far off.
That's a big number.
It's a big number. I'm going to throw that out. It's not just easy math that I'm trying to do, but that is a real number that we're looking at. So if it were $2,000 a month and the cost of living adjustment is 10%, you're going to get an extra $200 a month.
That's awesome.
Which is a great thing. Right now, the projections are showing that the increase be at 10.5%.
Holy cow. So, you know, to put that in context, if we look at 14, 15, 16, 18, and even 2020, I don't think there were any cost of living adjustments. In fact, during the entire Obama administration, there was no inflation. There was no increases of any kind, they claim. And so to go from nothing for so many years to a huge, 10.5%?
That's what they're saying. However, with the rate hikes that the Fed's doing right now, that is projecting to slow that down to 7 to 8%. So as it stands right now, it's 10.5%. The trend that it's going for and the target that the Fed's aiming for is between 7 and 8%. So right now, yes, about 10%. I think most likely it'll be 7 to 8%, which is still
a big increase. Most of the ones I've experienced with my clients, 1.8, We've seen a couple 2s. So even an 8% increase is big.
Yeah.
What does that do? We haven't talked about this a long time. It hasn't made the news. But the big concern with Social Security is it's going to run out of money. Al Gore tried to create a lockbox concept. What does this kind of an increase do to that?
For those that are 55 and older already taking their Social Security, they're grandfathered in, so they have nothing to worry about. However, there are some things that they may do. One of them is they can adjust certain things like Medicare premiums. In addition to the cost of living adjustments, there is some talk that I've read that they may decrease the Medicare premium payments. Okay. So that might alleviate some more strain on the budget if you're living off of mostly Social Security or just Social Security.
Yeah, and I think a thing that they don't really take into consideration are demographics. Social Security, in the most blatant and caustic terms, is a Ponzi scheme. The beneficiaries of today's Social Security payment are the new contributors to the Social Security tax. So, those people that are retired right now, we're paying for them. And when we retire, it's their grandkids that will pay for us in theory. Now, the demographic concept was the baby boomer used to be the largest generation in the history of the world. And then there's the Gen Xers, and we were very small with a concept called Roe v. Wade that kind of limited our gene pool. And then there's the millennials and the Gen Z. Larger than the baby boomers. So when you're talking Ponzi schemes, when you're talking Social Security, it's how many contributors are there per retirees. In my generation, I think it takes 5 working people to pay for one retiree. In the millennial and the Gen Z group, it's 2.8 to 3.1 is what I've read. So the good news for retirees, there's more workers coming online. There are more people to shore up the Social Security lockbox fund. And so it should continue, even though massive increases like this, right?
Right.
Okay.
And unemployment's really low, so that's also looking good. The millennial generation is not having as many kids as the baby boomer generation, or the Gen Z.
Yeah.
I'm an older millennial, so I'm not sure where I fit in on that, but that's something later on down the road that there's probably going to be some adjustments for that.
Demographics are a big part of this conversation. Talk to us a little bit about inflation. What's going on with inflation? What trends are you seeing right now?
So, that's been the hot topic for 2022. And right now, the Fed has announced they're probably going to be doing another rate hike.
They did it.
They did
it just the other day.
They did the other day.
Today is Friday. They did it on Wednesday.
Right. And that has been the Fed's main focus going forward, is slowing inflation. Whenever they do a rate hike, that is the purpose of that is to slow down inflation down. And we usually don't see the benefit of that rate hike to slow inflation down till months later down the road, 3 to 6 months later on down the road. So the things that they're doing now have an impact on us that will be hopefully positive a few months down the road.
Yeah, I think it's manifest easiest in the housing market. So I got my 2022 property tax bill, and it said in 2020 my house is worth $300,000, and in 2021 my house is worth $800,000. That's inflation. Nothing changed in my house. Nothing at all, other than the county gets to tax me a little bit more. And a lot of clients come to me and say, well, at this rate, my kids will never be able to afford a house. However, if you start changing the metrics for borrowing money, specifically if you raise interest rates, you can't get a 2% mortgage anymore. Now it's almost 5.5%, 6%. My first mortgage was 8.5%. That slows down that housing market. That also slows down everything, frankly.
Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, whenever they raise rates on interest rates, the values of the home, the prices will drop. So if you go onto the market, every time they do that, the value of the homes have to adjust to make up for that. Yeah. So, with home buyers, whatever you're paying for in your interest rate, you usually make up for in the drop in the
because the budget only allows so much. If I can only put $2,000 a month toward a mortgage, I don't care how much the bank gets or the person I bought it from gets. I still only have $2,000. So if my interest rate went from 2% and now it's 5.5%, well, your home price needs to come down accordingly. We're in that weird void right now where those two have not met up, but that's occurring. You're starting to see more houses come on the market. You're starting to see fewer sales occurring. That's the slowdown that you're talking about.
In addition to that, we've seen a decrease in commodity prices like copper, aluminum, oil. The consumer spending has gone down. And whenever consumer spending goes down, it affects the law of supply and demand. Mm-hmm. And whenever that's affected, the prices of goods tend to slow down. The rate at which they cost starts to slow down, and sometimes they can hopefully go down in price. So with the continued increased rates that the Fed's doing, the consumer spending going down, I believe that the cost of living adjustment, even though it's projected to be about 10.5% to 11% right now, will be around 7 to 8%. That's still really big. To give you some context, you kind of gave us some of when you of how low it was and the previous rate hikes. The only two other rate hikes that were bigger than the projection ones that we have right now were in 1980 and in 1981. And those were, 1980 was 14.3%. Yeah. 1981 was around 12%.
Coming right off the Carter administration, Reagan's trying to rein things in. Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
So while this feels like new territory to us,
for a whole generation it is.
It's the second go around since the 80s.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So wrap us up. What are the key takeaways that we want our people to know?
Well, I want the people to know that are worried that are on fixed income that they will get more money for next year to help with those cost increases. I also want them to know to keep an eye out on their Medicare premiums. That's something that you and I are going to be watching to see if those decrease. And also that if you need a way to come up with extra money with the cost, even if the cost of living adjustment on your Social Security is not enough. Pat and I, John, we're here to help you come up with creative ideas on supplementing that income.
Really awesome. Scott, thanks for telling us. It's awesome to have an on-staff expert in Social Security. We appreciate what you're doing here. Thanks for bringing our listeners in and bringing us up to speed. With that, we look forward to more education and wealth advocates. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to The Wealth Advocates. Join us every month by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts. You can also look for The Wealth Advocates on Stitcher and YouTube. Want more information about today's topics? Reach out to John or Patrick directly by calling or texting the Wealth Advocates office at 435-754-7888. Learn more about the Wealth Advocates and how they can help you by visiting www.wealth-advocates.com. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Wealth Advocates and Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated are not affiliated.